Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. With me today is Pete Sahani, CEO of the Blinc Group. Thank you very much for joining me today, Pete.
Thank you for having me, David. It's a pleasure.
Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter, daily newsletter. Whoa, I went back in time there. Our daily newsletter, and make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. Pete, I always like to start with a little bit of background. So how was it that you found yourself in the cannabis industry?
I could go into a lot of detail. I won't. I went to school in Humboldt County. That's where I went to college. So I think that might say as much as I'd like to say. And then I went off into, doing business and running a few of my own businesses and ended up back in the cannabis industry as things were starting to become rec legal in California around, 2015, 2016.
So you've been in the industry since about 2015, 2016. What changes have you seen and experienced? Is the industry as mature as you thought it would have been by 2024?
Actually, I think, it's probably more mature than I would have thought it would be in this kind of short time frame, right? Let's call it 10 years or so, that generally things have been turning rec. It's actually a testament to how resilient people are in this space, right? I just look around so many times, like when I got back into it, people were just like barely able to put things together and, shipping products and doing distribution and figuring out distribution routes and all of that. And somehow or the other, MSOs have come in, good, bad, or otherwise, right? We can talk about it on a different call, but MSOs have come in and like everybody's worked out their own systems of doing things, which is just a testament to the resilience of how this space operates. One of the things I love about it.
So what is the Blinc Group?
The Blinc Group manufactures and distributes vape hardware. That's the core product of what we do. We're known for the compliance side of our business. That's been the background of our business, but we're also known for some of the innovative products that we've been launching recently. I would say in the last 2 years or so, we kind of got back into launching new products on a regular basis and launching new services as well.
What's the compliance side of the business?
Compliance side of the business is really, I call it compliance, but it's just the Blinc Group is known for the compliant hardware that we manufacture. We're very particular about what we do there. One of the founders of the company, Arnaud, he sits on the board of ASTM. He sits on the board of, some of the regulations bodies in Europe. He's an engineer by trade, and that has really caused this company to take a direction of being very vigilant on what goes into making a piece of vape hardware, right? So controlling the supply chain, knowing that everybody along the supply chain is ISO and GMP certified, and being very particular about the materials that go in, right? So constant validation of like raw materials, etc., before things get made.
So you became CEO last December, right?
Yes.
How have things been, ever since you took over the top of the food chain?
Always kind of iffy, right? When things get off the ground. I came in as COO. The mandate was to, attend to a lot of like operational challenges and kind of fix those things. And I did that. And then the board decided to appoint me as CEO. I really did appreciate that. And it's kind of been a good ride so far. We continue to launch new products. Yes, top of the food chain, comes with all the responsibilities. I think I work more now than I did ever in my past, right? But I love every minute of it, right? We built a great team. We're operationally sound. The products we launch are just great. Our non-conformances, as far as being compliant hardware, are next to nothing, right? So the company is just on an upward trajectory, which is just amazing.
You mentioned something earlier. I've heard a lot of questions that surround vape hardware, quality, the materials that are used. How does Blinc go out of its way to make sure, it's using the best type of materials to create the best and potentially safest type of hardware for users out there?
So I'll kind of give you that answer as almost a comparison, right? What generally the industry does or other people do, and what Blinc does. Other people do not control their entire upstream supply chain. To us, that's where things happen, right? So knowing every bit of raw material that comes in, and not just relying on some paperwork that comes into a factory, right? We actually go test those raw materials on a regular basis to make sure that they're compliant with our standards. Our standards are way higher than a regular, I would say, a vape hardware manufacturer standards. So that's the first step that we take. And then it's constant validation, not just of the raw materials, but of the manufacturing process. Are they being done correctly? We have a team of engineers that literally stand on the production line and validate things as production is happening for our products. Don't see others doing that. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just completing the thought there. I said, don't see others doing that objectively. I just don't see it.
When did the company decide to gain that control over the supply chain? Was there an incident, or was that something that's been at issue since day one?
It's kind of been one of the things that the company's wanted to do for a while. We're I would say about 7, maybe 8 years old. And really, I think that started to take shape about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, when we set up our own offices in China to manage this. We've got a whole team there. We've now got 8 people there. And really, when I came into the company, that was an area that I wanted to focus on as well, because it's the area that sets us apart from everybody else. So we really dug in deep, started controlling that upstream supply chain probably about 3 years ago.
When other operators think about gaining more control over their supply chain, it seems like one heck of an undertaking. Could you talk a little bit to the ROI that you've realized, or some of the issues that you've been able to prevent by gaining this kind of control?
Yeah, that's a great question. In terms of ROI, our non-conformance rate in the last 2 years, 2.5 years, has gone from about 1%, which is generally the industry standard, to currently, in 2023, we were 0.02% non-conformance. So like massive shift, right? Again, to 0.02% as compared to 1% in 2 years is just a massive gain. That's the ROI that I look at every time we do this, right? So we've got happier customers. We don't have things coming back. We don't have failures. We don't have people complaining your things are leaking. We don't have people complaining your things are clogging. We just don't deal with that anymore.
Speaking about consumers, what are the trends that you're seeing? What are consumers looking for in new vaping hardware?
So, we've seen the trend over the last year and a half towards AIOs, or disposables, as they're kind of called. We try not to call them disposables. There's now some regulation around that as well. So all-in-ones seem to be kind of the product that the industry is going towards, mostly because, it's still a growing industry, right? A lot of newcomers, people want to try things out, don't want to mess with the cartridge and the battery and all of that. And so within that, we've decided to launch a whole bunch of new innovative products in the last year or so that are easy to recycle, or almost what I would call recycle ready, kind of staying ahead of that curve, to be ahead of the regulation, right? Even though regulation today doesn't support just, straight up easy recycling, we wanted to be ahead of that curve and provide devices or provide options to our customers that are easy to dismantle.
What does recycle ready mean?
Recycle ready, actually, we can't say that things are recyclable within the cannabis industry because most states or most localities do not consider cannabis waste as just a regular waste product. It's considered hazardous waste. So, when we design new products, we look at how we can make them easy to dismantle, or, get them ready for recycle. So, when we look at an outer shell of a body of an AIO, we look at making it out of steel as opposed to plastic, because the metal is infinitely recyclable. When we say it's easy to dismantle, it's basically one click, right? You push a button, you can take the entire assembly apart, separate the battery from the rest of it, put the battery into e-waste, put the cannabis remnants or the tank, if you will, into hazardous waste. So we're kind of thinking along the lines of how do we make this easy for consumers to do.
Are consumers participating in this responsible recycling? Have you seen consumer buy-in?
We just launched some of these products like 4, maybe 5 months ago, but to that end, some of our customers who are the brands out there, they are starting to pay attention and look, some of these larger MSOs have launched their own recycling programs where they collect waste and they recycle them. Our customers are now starting to ask us about these products. And so being that we're ahead of the curve, it's just a great spot to be in.
Does the industry have a problem with vape hardware e-waste?
I would say absolutely, right? Nobody likes to talk about it, but absolutely the industry has a problem with that. It's the entire reason that we're going around, or that we're going kind of above and beyond to launch products that are easy to recycle.
I mean, are there any numbers out there as to how much e-waste is generated?
I don't think anybody's calculated on the cannabis side how much e-waste is actually being generated, but I think there's some very large numbers on the nicotine side talking to this, but it's kind of driving the same message, right? Like this is a problem for the cannabis industry as well.
Do you think the cannabis consumer is more likely to buy into a product that's more recyclable?
I would say if I was at a dispensary, yes, I would definitely kind of look towards a product that might be a little bit more expensive, but I would want to know that I can recycle it or somehow deal with the waste, right? And what's the easiest way to deal with it? So we are seeing consumers ask about it. Yes.
Is this an opportunity for dispensaries as well? Having similar, we're used to seeing like e-waste recycling stations at other retail outlets. Is that something that dispensaries could have to kind of be a differentiator?
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually going to start piloting a program with some of the customers that we work with in California, along with some dispensaries that we distribute to put those receptacles on, counters, if you will, at the dispensaries to have it collected, have it recycled and upcycled, right? One of the nice things is that a lot of these products can be upcycled into other things that can be used as promotional items, right? So like rolling trays and things like that. So you can repurchase those things and kind of through the upcycling, right? Take advantage of that as well.
You recently launched the Powered by Blinc stamp. What does that mean?
A lot of people just kind of come up with these taglines. And so when we talk about Powered by Blinc or not just vapor, we kind of defining how we do things, right? It's the mindset behind what we do. When something is powered by Blinc, you get a whole host of compliance documents that support the product. You get our attention. You basically get white glove service with anything that you purchase from Blinc, right? You get to take advantage of programs like our Blinc On Demand program, which is basically branded hardware in the US on the shelves, and not having to pay for it all at one time, right? So like it's basically a vendor managed inventory program that we run. We just call it On Demand. Basically gives our customers the ability to have their product here in the US without paying for it all up front.
I've heard of issues with vape hardware and its accessibility to younger users. Is Blinc doing anything to try and, prevent underage consumers from accessing the product?
Absolutely. Even our e-com site is age gated or age protected, right? So nobody under 21 can go into it. And when we talk about Canada, we actually thought about making it 25. Right? Even though they like to trend around 18, we thought of making it 25. We stuck with 21. So that's keeping our e-com site away from kids. But we're very particular in terms of the accounts that we take on, right? If we find that the branding kind of caters towards, more kid friendly or is kind of targeting underage consumers, we just won't take that customer on. We literally have denied some customers being able to buy from us because of that reason.
How often are you saying no to business?
Not very often. We've kind of become known to be that shop that will say no, and so I've had it happen in my time at Blink. I've had it happen twice now, so not that much, but it does happen.
What about anything from a tech perspective? Have you looked at any sort of age gating technology that could be directly incorporated into the device?
We've looked at various things like fingerprint IDs. We've looked at using a Bluetooth or using NFC chips. Kind of our challenge at the moment with a lot of those technologies is just the cost, right? People seem to be driving costs down, and we're trying to include features that will just drive cost up. So it's basically the technology exists. It's just becoming a cost thing.
What are the most popular products right now that Blink offers?
The popular products right now are our line of disposables or AIOs, all-in-ones, if you will. We've launched about four. We're on this track to launching a new product almost every month, and so this year we've launched 5 products already. They all have different features. I think our best one right now is what we call the Bijou. It's got preheat built into it. It's got a puff activated preheat. It's got what we call constant power, which keeps the power steady so that you get a very great, just a really amazing experience throughout the month.
Launching a product a month, what is your approach to R&D and innovation? What does that team of engineers look like, and what are the demands in terms of time to market and controlling costs?
Yeah, great question. So we take this approach of finding a few things that we like out there and then kind of bringing them all together. So it's kind of, I would almost call it the fast fashion approach, right? Where that these 4 things work, but they're independent of each other. Bring them together really quickly, put them into a nice package, verify, validate, bring it to market. We've been working on this for quite a while. It was one of the things that I started doing when I came into the company, was to develop this pipeline, right? And so starting this year, we had a whole pipeline of products, so kind of full pipeline, right? Just launching new products every month. Got a team of 8 people, like I said, 9 people in China that just do this full time.
It's interesting that you compare it to fast fashion, because I've heard that a lot, that the industry moves so fast that it's hard. And development, especially with, the cultivation side of things, is so slow that it's kind of hard to keep up. And as a result, sometimes you wind up with some product that is, let's just say, mislabeled.
Yeah, mislabeled, yes, but the fast fashion approach really comes from this idea of what works, right? You've got an idea of what works out there. You've seen 4 or 5 things that work. How do you kind of quickly make them better, fit our standards, fit the Powered by Blink standard, then bring them to market without mislabeling them or timing them correctly, right? So a lot of thought goes into, we often juggle things around, right? Hey, this isn't the best timing for this product that we've been working on for the last 2 months. Let's bring something else forward, or let's push something else back. A lot of work goes into it. I tend to manage the products of the company as well. So like I'm late into the night, deciding what to do next.
As you're managing those products, have you had any hits that caught you by surprise?
Yeah, we've had a couple. We started launching these postless devices about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and what we call postless is basically just a different technology for heating, as compared to the regular traditional center post that we see in all our carts. And that's just been like wildfire for the company. Increased sales by 60% last year alone, just by launching a couple of these products.
What does postless mean?
So every vape hardware either has a center post or a chimney where the vapor comes up. These are what we call postless because they do not have that same ceramic or that viscose material, cotton or whatever is surrounding the core or surrounding the heating element. This is basically a flat piece of ceramic with the element is printed onto the bottom of this piece of ceramic. It's a flat chip, basically, about the size of your thumbnail.
Interesting. Have you seen tastes and preferences evolve since you've gotten into the vape space?
Yeah, definitely seen it evolve. We're seeing the products that are being put into these devices evolve, right? It started with just being distillate, and it started with botanical terpenes. Now then it went to live resin. So kind of as this evolution continues, we're getting closer and closer to the actual plant, right? So now rosin's being filled into these carts or these devices, which is again nothing added, nothing taken away. It's straight plant material as much as we can, right? Squeezed into this device. So we are seeing that. That's a great thing to watch.
One thing that I was interested in is your company's investment in research, particularly, and not just product R&D, but like research into the industry, like rheology. How did the company get involved with that type of research? And, is it for more of a greater good than necessarily impact on Blinc?
I would say it's a little bit of both. It started off with the idea definitely of the greater good, right? We want to know, we want to be able to provide our customers with data on what is actually being consumed. So through the rheology process, we not only see, the viscosity of the oil, what makes up the oil, how it behaves, the different properties of the oil. We also get to collect aerosol mass. So we're now able to tell our customers, if they are interested, we can tell them exactly what cannabinoids and what percentage of cannabinoids are being consumed on every puff, right? So what percentage of CBN, what percentage of Delta 8 or Delta 9 is in there? This is kind of a mystery, right, to a lot of people. What goes into the vape might be well known, but what's actually coming out and being emitted is not as easily or not as readily available. So it started off with that.
Okay, and that's the emissions testing?
That's emissions testing, that's aerosol collected mass testing. Yep.
Do you partner with a university or another academic partner, or do you work with anyone in particular, a third party on these studies?
We do. We work with a lab, a private lab that's in Southern California, and we do these tests together with them. They're completely independent, so we have no kind of stake in it, if you will, or no say in the matter. We just give them oil. They don't usually test for what the cannabinoid content is. They're more looking at the scientific side of it, right? It's not so much, hey, can you tell me if this has 90% THC in it or 99% THC? It's more about, what is this oil? What's the consistency? How consistent does it behave, etc. And then so that led to us being able to design hardware for our customers that is specifically suited to their needs. Another way to drive that non-conformance down, where you don't have leakage or clogging, right? So we use this data to actually design products for our customers that do not fail.
With your focus on compliance, do you find yourself looking for new suppliers, parting with old suppliers? Is there a lot of churn in your supply chain, or is it pretty set in place right now?
Our supply chain is pretty set in place right now. When we do decide to make a change, I would say it's easily a 6 to 8 month process, where we go not just vet the actual assembly partner, but we go vet all their upstream supply chain. And that's a whole project in and of itself, right? Driving compliance through them. So we tend not to just move things around. But what makes us also very nimble is the fact that we control our own upstream supply chain. So we control those raw materials and all those components coming into these factories for our own production. Right? They only arrive when we ask for them to arrive. And so managing that has allowed us to be really nimble. If one factory is too busy, we can move things around to somebody else because it's our recipe.
So already with 5 product launches this year, what do you have in store for the rest of 2024?
A few more product launches. The marketing team's actually telling me slow down. So, and the development team in China is also saying the same thing. Like, Pete, enough. We got enough to do for the rest of the year. So we've got a few more product launches. We just relaunched our vendor managed inventory program, which we now call Blinc On Demand. Our focus is now kind of on that and kind of promoting that product or service, which is really to say that this is a managed inventory program where the client does not need to pay for all that hardware up front, right? Oftentimes, our competitors will sell something to somebody, and they've got to pay for it, right? So buy 100,000, pay for it, now sit on the inventory. Our program actually says the opposite, which is don't pay us for that upfront. We'll bring it into the US. You pay for it as you pull it from our warehouse. And so we provide an electronic shopping cart for that. You get an invoice, you pay it, you get your product delivered in 5 days. It addresses a lot of the working capital needs. It addresses space constraints, right, for a lot of our customers.
It certainly helps out your customers, but does it put you at any additional risk?
It does put us at a little bit of risk. Again, like we manage that in lockstep with our customers' demand, right? So the whole idea is that we bring in a certain portion of the inventory, right? Even if they order 100,000 units or 500,000 units of something, we don't bring in all of that on day one, right? We keep replenishing. So we'll bring in a bit, we replenish it. We bring in some more, we replenish it. That keeps risk at bay for us, and they pay for it as they take it. So we're kind of not building up AR on that side either.
Do you have any expectations as to what rescheduling might mean for the vape business?
It'll certainly open up the floodgates of capital for all of us. I think it will start to level out, how we operate. I think it'll definitely promote M&A some more, which will again start to level things out, right? I think that's just a step away from being federally legal, which will, what I call, that will be the one trigger that flattens the industry out, right? Everybody operates in the same playing field. We have so much redundancy right now. Even what we sell to our customers, right? California is buying one thing, but Oregon's buying something else, or they have a different regulation. I think all of that starts to fall into place with rescheduling.
On the subject of M&A, are you guys more likely to be in the M game or the A game?
Right now, not in either of those games. We're still in the process of building our business, and that's what we're entirely focused on. We just want to stay where we are right now and just continue to build the business. We've got a great foundation. Just want to bring it to a certain point, and then we can talk about that.
I understand that rescheduling will open the floodgates. Do you foresee any potential threats that the vape industry might be facing?
I mean, as far as threats go, I'm not sure what rescheduling does to us. It's, as in it starts to level things out, or it starts to flatten things out where we may not have so much redundancy, right? So if I was looking at it selfishly, I might be selling 5 SKUs to a particular client that operates in 5 states right now. I might end up selling them 1 SKU or 2 SKUs, but that's fine because you'll pick it up on the volume side, right? So there's pluses and minuses to it. I'm not sure that there's too many threats to the vape industry through rescheduling.
Outside of rescheduling, are there any threats that the vape industry could be looking at?
I think it's too well entrenched now. Big tobacco, sure, everybody likes to talk about it like they're the big bad monster out there, but I think they've got their hands full dealing with the FDA, so we'll let them deal with that for a bit. We'll kind of keep our heads down and do what we do. There's threats out there to every business, right, or to every segment of the market. Consolidation is always a point, but again, consolidation can be viewed as a threat or as an advantage, right? It's a strength.
I know that it's nebulous and sort of changing with every conversation that I have with someone in the industry, but do you have any predictions as to when we might see federal legalization?
No, I have no prediction. That's really the answer, right? I think, one of the things that I touched on earlier is the resilience of this space, right? We've all individually, people who are successful here, even the ones who have not been so successful, everybody's found their own way to function and found their own way to run a business or to run their own shop, if you will. I think, to me personally, I don't even think about, federal legalization because it'll happen when it happens. We're in a good spot to deal with it because we're ISO, we're GMP, right? So we're already compliant with a lot of those things that we expect the federal government to bring in. But really, to hinge your business on that, we've got a business to run, and we need to be a working shop, if you will.
How much of your business is in the US and then how much of it is global?
Well, at the moment, I would say probably 95% of our business is in the US, and we've got a few accounts in Europe. We've gone as far as Japan actually to actually cultivate some of the markets there. We're starting to see that Australasia region start to pick up as well.
Okay. Are there any specific markets in the US that you're particularly excited about?
I continue to remain excited about, contrary to what everybody else seems to believe, I continue to remain very excited about the California market. There's a lot of work to be done there. It's one of the toughest markets to break into or to survive in, but you figure out the right recipe for that survival, you got it made. I mean, all the biggest brands are here. All the innovation happens here.
If I had to pick a state that I would have thought you would have said last, I would have picked California. That's very surprising to me.
I tend to go upstream, and everybody's going one direction. I tend to go in the other way and kind of double down on those spots where people are kind of giving up, right? So we do a lot of work. I'm based out of California, even though the company's in New York. Do a lot of work in California, surprisingly. And as much as people say it's a dead market or it's dying or it's too competitive, we can't really compete. We can compete. We can.
Okay. So do you look more at new business in mature markets or kind of a mix?
I would say it's a mix, right? The way our sales teams are structured is really broken down into those buckets, right? Mature markets and kind of up and coming, or what we call emerging markets. So East Coast, Midwest, are focused there. This company played really well in those emerging markets because we were able to support some of those clients that a lot of other people didn't want to or couldn't for whatever reason. We've started to take that approach back to those mature markets and supporting those companies or those clients that a lot of other people have given up on.
Interesting. Well, Pete, I really do appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything else that you want to make sure the Cannabis Equipment News audience either knows about yourself or your work leading the Blinc Group?
No, I mean, I appreciate your time. With that being said, one of the areas that we excel in is, again, this Blinc On Demand. So, look us up online at theblincgroup.com, and there's a whole lot of information on our website on Blinc On Demand. We also offer some like ridiculously long payment terms to some of our customers. So look us up for that. Sometimes up to 5 months to pay for the vape hardware that you might buy today. Those are the two kind of pain points that we've identified for our customers or through our customers' interaction is, those are the two largest pain points, right? Don't want to hold all this inventory, don't want to pay for it all right now. And when I do, how long can I get to pay for it?
Well, I mean, to that point, though, I've heard from a lot of people that don't offer those terms because they've been burned so many times. How do you feel comfortable doing such a thing?
It's again through building those really tight relationships with people, one at a time, right? We may not offer those terms to somebody that signs on with us tomorrow, but somebody that works with us, that pay their bills on time, who we really, both sides of it, right? It takes two hands to really clap, right? And when we say we're a partner for you, we really do mean that, right? If you tell us what your pain points are, we will do everything we can to solve those pain points. And through that, we come to find that, sometimes you need to extend payment terms. We keep an eye on it. We've got no issues with people paying late or people not paying right now, because they've also recognized that we've become such a kind of integral part of their supply chain, right? Without us providing all the things that we do, all the white glove service that we do, they wouldn't have that vape hardware to put into market. So the thing they buy from us for, let's call it, $3 or $4, they wouldn't be able to sell that thing for 25 or 30 or 40 or whatever price they charge.
Well, and I understand that it's a partnership, right? Like your success is contingent on their success. Is there anything that you do with a new client or partner to try and help as best you can to make sure that their brand is a success?
We have done quite a few things with customers branding. We have an in-house marketing team that is second to none. One of the founders of the company heads up that side of the business. he comes from the brand building side. So we've gone so far as to, sponsor skate competitions for some of the customers that we deal with, right? They want to do some brand building exercise. We build them landing pages. We do swag for them, right? We do like things like skate decks, things like that to really help promote customers' brands. It's all about, for us, every client is like a partnership, and we treat that, whether it's small, big, medium, whatever it is. That's how we approach it, right? It's just hey, we want to talk to you, we want to listen to you, we want to understand what your pain points are. If we can help solve them, we'd love to do it.
When you have a new partner come online, is it sort of the crawl, walk, run mentality?
Absolutely. Sometimes we ask them, hey, we understand your projections are this large, but this is where we think you should be going, and here's how we can support you with that, right? Let's test the oil. Let's do the rheology on the oil. Let's make sure the hardware is a good match for it, because once you start running, you don't want an interruption, right? You do not want an interruption to your supply chain.
Well, Pete, thank you again for taking the time. I really do appreciate it.
Appreciate your time, David. Pleasure.
Before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. If you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com with email the podcast in the subject line. You can also subscribe to our daily newsletter. Make sure you get it delivered to your inbox first. For Pete Sahani, CEO of the Blinc Group, I'm David Manti. This is the Cannabis Equipment News. This is the Cannabis Equipment News podcast, and we will see you next week.
Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News podcast.